Welcome to this week's episode of Future Fridays, where we chat about ideas from the week that move the world forward. I'm your host, Wiz, and you can find me on Twitter at WizLikeWizard. Today we have three lovely guests who will each have go around and give a short 280-character intro. We also have with us Yael, who's a cartoonist, who will be live doodling with us for fun. And you can find her on Instagram at YaelIsms. So Lucas, we'll start with you. Do you want to give a short 280-character intro?
Sure. My name is Lucas. I run a syndicate on AngelList, investing 100 to 300K in companies that we believe are in the midst of a generational shift. Anything that we can understand better by being younger than other investors.
Awesome. Anamitra?
Hi all, I'm Anamitra. I and a friend of mine, Gaurav, we started a fund called Afore Capital. We focus on pre-seed. We started in 2016. We manage about 124 million, and unusual for the stage, we write out a very large check. So nothing is too early for us.
Great. And John, last but not least.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Connell, investor and head of business development over at Modulate. We're thinking pretty intently these days around addressing online toxicity and empowering the future of identity through voice.
Awesome. So before we jump in today, I just wanted to share that all of the headlines that we're going to go through today come from a newsletter I work on called This Week in Creative Tech. Each week, we share about 30 interesting headlines from the week that span the gamut of things that are sort of more current, all the way to things that are totally future and crazy. Anyone watching can sign up at bit.ly/join Future Fridays. So we'll start today with a game. This is going to be worth 5 points, and there's going to be a really awesome prize at the end for the winner. I'll be keeping score as we go along. So this is real or fake. We've got 3 headlines here, 2 of which are real and 1 of which is fake. So the job for you all is to guess which one is the fake one. So the first headline here is AI program to develop recipes plagiarizes Gordon Ramsay. The second one is girls are rating the fish instead of the guys holding them on Tinder. And the final headline, number 3, is scientists stored the Wizard of Oz on a strand of DNA. So fists up when you're ready, and we'll do rock, paper, scissors, and then at the end shoot, and then just do 1, 2, or 3 corresponding to whichever one you think is the fake headline. Anamitra, fist up?
Yep.
Awesome. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. So we've got 3. John, is that a 2?
It's a 2.
And Anamitra, that's a 2. So the fake headline is actually number 1. So no points for anyone this round. Yeah, the other 2 are actually correct. And the first one is fake. So more opportunities in the future games to catch up though. Great, so we'll move on to the first headline for today. This one is Snap turns on minis, bite-sized third-party apps in Snapchat. Basically, they're trying to emulate the popular super app model similar to WeChat. Snap minis are lightweight, simplified versions of apps, things like Headspace, that live within Snap's chat section. So let me put it out to you all. Is bundling apps and services like WeChat actually better for consumers, or is this just a way to trap people inside of the company's ecosystem?
I can start this one. It makes a lot of sense. It's worked in China very well for the entire population. It's been tried by Facebook and others in the US. Hasn't really worked because we already have alternatives. But this has been tried with millennials and Gen Z before by a company called Kik, Messenger out of Canada, that my previous fund was involved with, and there was a lot of promise. But I think Kik being Snapchat being a visual sort of interface, they probably have a better shot than anyone else to try this out.
Yeah, really interesting. I had been in China for about a year or so, and WeChat, super popular app over that direction. To your question, the figurative rubber band that is bundling and unbundling is one that I think is going to continue swinging back and forth. You know, I think a lot of folks talk about it. Ben Thompson, Benedict Evans, a couple of examples in gaming, right? You think content is really king in that department. Differentiation between incumbents is effectively exclusive content, right? You've got hardware that's commoditized. Productivity space, another similar example, Microsoft was able to bundle kind of early Word, PowerPoint, Excel. You've got a lot of companies that have been able to successfully unbundle too. Take Airbnb or Uber as examples, right? They effectively took Craigslist, extrapolated a part of the ecosystem, the marketplace, if you will. But yeah, to your point, expect to see a bunch of bundling and unbundling going forward as it means to just providing value to the customer.
Lucas, thoughts?
The only thought I have on this is that, Snap has truly made a very remarkable comeback, at least when it comes to, the public perception ever since the IPO. And they're definitely the most well-positioned company to actually pull something like this off, at least as of right now in the US.
Totally. All right, we'll move on. Headline number 2 is all the best free no-code tools to build your online projects. So this is a subscription-based directory called TIMS, which is a directory of the best free no-code tools and resources to build, launch, and grow your online projects. Putting it out to you all, are no-code tools the future of democratizing creation, or will we end up with just a mess of very shallow use junk tools?
I think the answer is absolutely yes, right? Like, this is great, guys. I love the idea of aggregating tools. High level, I'm bullish on automation, low code, no code. Automation, I think to some degree, is going to be the modern industrial revolution, right? In the same way cars, planes, manufacturing has kind of increased their species output, if you will, from a productive standpoint. The next iteration of that is automation tools that will accelerate our capacity for productivity. Enterprise first robotic process automation companies. You look at Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, UiPath, right? These guys are behemoths in the space, and we'll probably see dozens more in their wake. There's kind of this, I would say, untapped opportunity right now in consumer automation that hasn't really been fully fledged, addressed in any way, shape, or form. Command Dot is one in that space that has kind of intrigued me within productivity automation, and definitely excited to see what else happens there.
Yeah, I think that the headlines that we tend to read about something like the no code wave that we're seeing now tend to be very binary. They're either going to substitute everything, or it's going to be a complete scam. The reality is that at the end of the day, I believe that it will help to democratize probably like the long tail, and there will be a lot of great businesses that will come out of that. But at the end of the day, there will still be room to like all the other developers that we have today. So I think at the end of the day, this helps to grow the pie, and it's probably a big net positive for everybody.
Anamitra, final thoughts?
In full agreement with everyone here. My only observation was, this is really cool. It's a great directory of free tools, but the service itself is not free, which I found was very odd. Like,
$29. It's a good deal. It's good value.
It's like that. To me, it should be free too. No.
So also, how many tools do you need to use that you need a whole directory to see all 200 of them? All right.
If somebody could figure out how to apply them, I'd be interested. That's, I think, the tough question there, right? Is the specific application. But my two cents, eh?
Third headline here is WindowSnap, a wonderful way to see the world through other people's windows while stuck at home. If you guys haven't seen this yet, I highly recommend it. It's so cool. It's basically, they ask people to submit 10-minute videos outside of your windows. I mean, we all talked at the start of this call how we're all in various different places, and it allows you to just shuffle through all of these different beautiful views of outside of people's windows from all over the world. So cool. Putting it out to you all. Could this be a way to foster empathy and understanding for others, especially in this time where we're traveling less, or is this just another version of digital voyeurism?
I can go. I think this is a really cool idea. Actually, a friend of mine pinged me about this company. I think it's based out of Singapore, and they got really popular in Business Insider Australia. It's a friend's cousin, actually, and it's cool because you get to see the world from someone else's eyes. Every morning you see something. It's actually, there was another company called 1 Minute that a founder called Alex Kwan started here in San Francisco, which is very similar, which is like, whatever you're looking at right now, share a photo. It sort of like gives you a sense of like ambient intimacy almost in a way. So you can, it's almost like being there. Extension of this idea is like teleportation, like just being there in person. So you could totally see it going from images to video. It could be a whole thing. But for now, I think that makes timing is everything, right? For now, like you can't travel, it's like, this is a great bootstrapped way to start. I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah, initial impression on this end, super cool concept, right? I would love to have this as the background for my lock screen on my phone, just to be able to kind of test it out initially. I think if engagement features like two-way chat would be super cool too, especially if you could, say, identify a specific demographic or geography of people that you'd want to talk to. So feature requests there, but interesting concept.
Yeah, I think, you know, overall, I think it's a pretty interesting idea. I guess my general thoughts on this, you know, when I say that I tend to think a lot about generational shifts and, you know, what a younger generation might see differently than other people. I always find it a little bit amusing when, you know, something like this grabs a headline and people tend to be in awe of these ideas of fostering empathy online. I mean, you talk to any Gen Z that kind of grew up with the internet and played World of Warcraft or something like that, like they've been doing that their whole lives, right? So it's just interesting to me that there is a very big generational gap in the way that we look at these things.
Totally. All right, we'll move on to our first cartoon break of the day. Cartoonist, what do you have for us?
I have two ideas. So I was thinking that this took off because of the pandemic and people miss places that they can't go. So I was thinking about a public restroom camp.
That's funny.
And then secondly, instead of making people feel envious of your view, I think if you flip the camera,
the sore spot reality there, huh?
Yeah.
This is what you do on Instagram.
That's it.
So you're
Nice.
creating the app for this, right? Where you just film people doing their daily lives? Or do they
Yeah,
call it
yeah.
Instagram now?
It's called
Luke-
Make Me Feel Better About My Life. It's just like the not pretty parts of your life.
Lucas and Anamitra are going to fund it.
It's like
Okay,
the
cool.
WindowSwap.
Totally. All
Couch
right.
swap.
Cool. Moving on. Headline number 4. So this one is Google's new shopping app is like telemarketing channel for influencers. So this is called Shop Loop, and it's a video platform for discovering, evaluating, and buying products all in one place. It's like a social media platform featuring product reviews and affiliate links. I think what Google saw is that things like product reviews on YouTube have become a big part of online consumerism. And this is basically their way of adding an added level of entertainment and personality. But question to you all, what is the ideal recipe for the online retail experience? Is it injecting things like personality and entertainment, or is that just overkill for what we actually want and need?
Yeah, interesting question. You know, I think I'm of the mind that influencers who sell on these platforms and are good at what they do are probably the real winners. I think you'd alluded to that to some degree. The analogy here in the gaming space, you know, we saw the rise of streaming platforms and then influencers like Ninja who were able to command audiences of literally millions of users, right? And they were effectively entertaining personalities. They're good at what it is that they do. My friend Nick actually is selling Pokemon cards, fun enough, on PopShop, another one of these real-time e-commerce platforms similar to ShopLoop. His show is super entertaining, even for those who are passively watching versus actually buying products. Super great. Another competitor in the space going after beauty, right? I think long-term, though, I would imagine that the industry will probably end up witnessing the rise of the influencers in a similar dynamic. They'll probably dominate specific vertical niche areas. You know, live streaming shopping. This is something it's been massive in Asia. And honestly, now that we're all stuck indoors, it's probably a good time to start seeing this come further west. We'll see how that one pans out, though, right?
What's really interesting is folks who used to make money offline with some kind of a skill that you might have to go to a store for, or you might have to go to a salon or a gym for. You can now sell that online. It's just hard to do. So if this was like if a Shopify were to be born to enable these creators, what would that look like? I think this is one such example, but it makes sense. This is probably like a wave. It makes sense that Google is doing this one as opposed to Facebook, but because this one is all about intent. You're ready to buy. You only want commerce. You don't want entertainment. It's you're ready to act on your intent, as opposed to Facebook, which is like you weren't even thinking about makeup, but boom, like watch this sort of fascinating video, and then at the end you subtly sort of jam in that product. I think I think it makes sense that Google is going after this audience because your intent on shopping and you just want to do deep research. You're at the tip of the spear. So huge market for this clearly, and beauty and cosmetics makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I guess my only thoughts on this, and I think that John mentioned this as well, it's kind of like what we had on the first headline. It's something that has worked well in Asia, very, very well in Asia, and now we're trying to see a new take on this here in the US. It could work. As someone who never actually ever watched one of these influencer videos to actually purchase a product, I'm definitely not the market, but you know, we've seen success at this elsewhere.
Lots of borrowed ideas from Asia. All right, headline number 5. Lightboxer is Peloton, but for boxing. So this new startup offers a Peloton-esque experience that's basically boxer training, but at home. It provides a digital game of Lights Out, which harnesses rhythm to guide your punches. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of these cropping up now. Putting it out to you all, is smart equipment for home use the future of fitness? Or are all of these things going to turn into another place for us to hang our laundry?
I think this one is pretty interesting. There was another company doing the exact same thing that got funded by a well-known VCs, I think a month ago for boxing. I think my thought here that I find super interesting as someone who deeply misses going to the gym ever since February, is that a lot of these companies, just in general, they tend to come out servicing, you know, very rich people. You know, so I would say that, you know, the average Peloton customer is probably upper middle class, to say the least. And then over time, we see a democratization of this. So I guess what I'm actually really curious is to see, you know, like 5 to 10 years down the line, like have we actually seen this coming down to, you know, other people from other with less financial resources? And my hope is that yes, you know, and I think that we will see this happening over the next decade, but my sense is that we're still at the very early innings of this.
Yeah, I think my thoughts here are pretty brief. I think it's really interesting. I'd love to try it out. You know, home fitness, it's become a habit for many, myself included. I think it's here to stay. Habits are hard to break. And, you know, while I'm not even a boxer, this is cool.
It seems like as the lockdown and COVID sort of extends the timeline, I have bought weights at home. Like they used to be like $200, and then I think you can buy them for $1,000. And I think many others have invested in more sort of more expensive hardware. Peloton being one, obviously the boxing Peloton also. But as more and more people invest more and more in their home gyms, and once they've made that investment, would they go back? How many of them will still go back to the gym because they've already made this investment at home? They've got this setup now, which they would never have. Like, I wonder what happens to like gyms in the long run, because the setup's pretty good. I mean, I've outlaid a bunch of capital. I might as well accrue on it, and I have all the convenience. You don't get the social network, I guess. You don't get to see other people or hang out or do group classes. But maybe maybe the future will be different from the past.
Yeah, the convenience is huge there for sure. Way easier to do those workouts at home than having to get all dressed and look pretty and go to the gym. All right, headline number 6 is Amazon's new smart shopping cart lets you check out without a cashier. So this is another take on Amazon Go, which many of us have heard of. This is, instead of the store having all of the cameras and things tracking what you're buying, it's actually built into the cart. So the Dash cart is being tested in Amazon grocery stores, and very much like Amazon Go, it links to your Amazon account and tracks items that you place into it. Putting it out to you all, does the convenience of the technology like this in store add to the retail experience or take away from it? Have any of you gone into the Amazon Go store, and what has been your experience there?
I think I haven't been. I think it's like I'm not. If you were to ask me when I'm waiting in line at Whole Foods or Safeway, like, what do you think of your retail experience? Would you go for a self-service checkout like this? Like, no brainer, of course. But it's hard to do. And while Amazon might get the credit for, or get the buzz for doing this, I think there's a company called Caper and probably a bunch of others who have already have smart shopping carts in market or in development. It makes sense, no? But I wonder what happens to them once they get stolen. Like, do you still see them, like folks who are using them on the sidewalk, like they do the old school shopping carts? I don't know. That might be interesting.
Yeah, to your point, is this something that can be built out horizontally, or is it something that's vertically integrated, right? Does Amazon own the entire experience stack, or do they outsource to various third parties? And I think ultimately, as long as you say, the user experience is a good one, and it's not intrusive, go for it. By all means, being able to skip lines at the cash register is definitely a net benefit in my mind.
Yeah,
Lucas?
I think it's fantastic. I've gone to the Amazon Go store here in San Francisco a bunch of times. It's an incredible experience. The only reason why I don't go more is because so far they're still very limited and very small. There's a company, I think, backed by Floodgate, maybe Luke's as well. I forgot their name, that they're trying to create the Amazon Go for everybody else. And I really hope this succeeds. It's kind of like an Anamitra said. It's like, maybe it doesn't occur to you, that this is a problem. But like once you are actually faced with the issue, of staying in line, and if there is an alternative, everybody would take it, right?
All right, we'll move on to our second game. This one's worth 10 points, an opportunity for you all to put some points up on the board. We've got 3 options here, one of which is the correct one that completes the headline. The job for you all is to write down which one you think is the correct one. So, see the world's first whiskey bottle made out of, is it paper, 3D printed cellulose, or cork? So just write your answers down and then give me a thumbs up when you're ready. And then once everyone's ready, we'll show our answers to the screen. Lucas, you ready? All right. Okay, what do you all have? C, 3D printed cellulose. 3D printed cellulose. Oh, wow. So the correct answer is in fact paper. No points again. This one is Johnny Walker announced it'll release a limited edition of its black label whiskey using bottles made out of paper, sourced from sustainably sourced wood pulp. It sounded weird to me when I read the article. I guess the biggest thing is that it's more environmentally friendly because glass is heavy. So even though glass is recyclable, it actually has a bigger environmental impact just because of the weight of shipping truckloads worth of it. So paper was the correct answer. All right, moving on. Headline number 7. So this is one that we've probably all heard about. OpenAI's new language generator, GPT-3, is shockingly good and also completely mindless, according to this article. So GPT-3 is the largest language model ever created and can generate amazing human-like text on demand. But again, according to this article, won't bring us closer to true intelligence. So putting it out to you all, I mean, you've probably seen some pretty cool examples of GPT-3 in use. I know I have. There's a lot of counterexamples of terrible things that it could do, things like spreading misinformation. How do we ensure, and I think this is what OpenAI is actually founded on, but how do we ensure that the pros of AI outweigh the cons?
Yeah, that's a super big question. Building an impactful and ethically responsible AI solution, ML solution, it's a large topic to address. You've got human bias, you've got model limitations, there's, in some instances, a lack of transparency in the way in which these models make decisions. Many factors that we could go down the rabbit hole on, just in terms of the general framework that you need to put in place before you kind of evaluate what impact is. Now, assuming you can figure this out, right? Assessing some of those pros and cons and implementing AI, I would argue could probably be similar to traditional business decisions, right? Dimensions across cost and integration timeline and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, I think that there's no way to come up with a 30-second answer to this, but I would say that the first thing that I think is just important to move fast from is this conversation of like, oh, like, should this happen or should this not happen, which I think we tend to get stuck on all the time. The first thing that we need to acknowledge is like, it's going to happen. Now, if we accept it's going to happen, then what do we do about it? And I think that if we can just get past that conversation, that's probably at least like half of the work that we have to do, because we tend to get stuck on these so much and they're not productive. Like whatever we think about AI, like it will be here in the future. So if we can just get the conversation to what do we do about it, we're going to be doing a lot of the work already.
Open questions, the list of open questions are extremely long, but immediate application is probably for stuff like content marketing, where they'll churn out like pages and pages of stuff that most people don't end up reading. Just like our sort of investment memos. I'm beginning to use this for my investment memos because nobody reads that either.
I've got a company for you called ScriptSwap that will synthesize those notes. Hopefully the investment memos can be consolidated, eh?
103.
All right. Headline number 8. Expert Republic, one-on-one video consultations with experts from any industry. So this actually launched on Product Hunt recently. And it's basically a mobile app that allows customers to have video calls with professionals, whether that's fitness consultants, teachers, counselors, lawyers, or whoever can provide services through one-to-one video calls. Kind of like Clarity, but I guess targeted more towards professionals, especially in these times where it's harder for us to access them. So putting it all out to all of you, I mean, obviously it makes sense during the pandemic. What is this going to look like when we start to return to regular services in the future?
This makes I mean, there are equivalents of this in the in industry and enterprise, like GLG and others, where if you need to speak, like hedge funds and other folks in consulting, they need to speak to a domain expert. You pay through your nose, but that's okay because the company pays, and to understand what's going on in the business, get smart quick. There haven't been a lot of. I think there's a lot of demand for it beyond the hedge funds and others. But on the consumer side, nothing's really worked because consumers don't want to pay. So if someone can figure out, like maybe this company, that if you can get consumers to pay, I think this is a phenomenal product and market. It's all about creating liquidity in the marketplace.
I think
on the payment point there. Oh, go for it, Lucas.
No, I was just going to say, as someone who has a background in management consulting myself, for better or worse, I'm very interested in specifically what's going to happen post-COVID. I think that if we think about professional services as a whole, for the long tail of professionals, I think that something like this would make a lot of sense. I think that we're going to see a very big backlash of, like the actual big professional firms when it comes to remote work. Like these industries, like we have like huge companies that have been predicated on all the fees that they can actually get from the customers. And I really don't see them, accepting the remote work environment if they have the option. And I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. So I think for some, this might make sense, but for the big firms, I struggle to see how it's going to happen.
Yeah, I've seen a few for just approaches around disintermediating some of these expert networks, right? The GLGs and alpha sites of the world. High level value definitely comes from the depth and kind of the expertise of the network, right? To the earlier conversation around bundling and unbundling, again, I think this is one of those instances where we see further fragmentation, specialization. I think that convenience is going to be a really big factor that folks probably take into consideration on the consumer side there. But that connection services in general, absolutely here to stay. It's just a matter of how it is that they're implemented, how they go to market, even in a post-COVID world, right?
Awesome. Headline number 9 is announcing the TechCrunch list, a founder-friendly directory of first check and lead VCs. So this is another directory, but this is actually put on by TechCrunch. It's called The List, and it's a verified and curated list of investors who have demonstrated a recent commitment to first checks and leading rounds from seed through growth. This one's interesting because there's a lot of conversation around access to VC, especially in a time where we're all trying to really keep things like diversity top of mind. Does this list help democratize and make VC funding more accessible to those who may not have previously received funding or have access to that kind of network? Would be curious to hear your thoughts.
First impression here, assuming you're a TechCrunch reader, yeah, absolutely. I think equally relevant, given the new normal, right, is understanding which firms are actually writing checks into new investments.
So I think this makes a lot of sense again, and I think whether it increases access to VC or venture dollars to folks who wouldn't otherwise get it potentially, but I think I think this is very well played by TechCrunch because you get a bunch of VCs to compete against one another, and then what they did, I think very smartly, put this all behind a paywall, ExtraCrunch, and so they ended up getting a lot of subs coming out of this, and all the VCs wanted to be part of this list, and they told other people, and they weren't subscribing to ExtraCrunch. Now they are, so it's great. I'm sure we'll see many more lists coming out of this.
I think that there's a lot of very interesting conversations on the democratization of funding that's happening now, mostly because of COVID. A lot of it having to do with diversity, and there's a lot of great things happening and really good conversations. When it comes to the actual TechCrunch list, maybe this is more of a skeptical take. I think it's just a marketing play that doesn't really help to move the needle long term, but hopefully it will have an impact. My guess is that it really won't, but as I think Anamitra pointed out, like it's a really good play by TechCrunch, and it probably will have some good results for them. So.
Yeah, the elusive honeypot of exclusivity. It works until it doesn't, right?
All right, final headline of the day. How drones could reshape cities. So not a very descriptive headline, but what this article was about is basically a deep dive on how cities could be reshaped when drones become a lot more ubiquitous. Putting it out to you all, will drones change our urban landscapes for the better, or will they just add more complications and congestion to city life?
Well, as long as they don't take up the bike lane, I think I'm fine.
Nice.
John,
Yeah,
go for it. All right, I'll take it. I think it's pretty clear. Aircraft will absolutely add to congestion. I'm more excited, though, to be focusing on the benefits here, right? What are we going to be receiving as a result of having this new technology more regularly in our lives? Drone systems of tomorrow will probably be doing everything from sweeping the streets, delivering your groceries. I think the article had mentioned delivering supplies from point A to point B, fixing intelligent infrastructure, right? The list goes on. It's interesting because there are a few companies now, Flirty, that have kind of received permission from the FAA to go after some of these problem statements. And as it relates to urban design, would love to see infrastructure like urban drone ports accessible to some of these teams that are in the midst of normalizing drone technology for everyday use.
Yep, I think that this conversation about drones is interesting from a broader technology standpoint, in the sense that these conversations have happened like for decades, right? And they come and go in cycles. It's like the conversation about AI that's been happening in the 60s, and it comes and goes every decade. So I think that at this point, and this is kind of like the third time that we pick on this in this conversation, but it probably won't happen here in the US first, just like autonomous cars. And I think at some point, like we will reap the benefits from drones. Likely not, like I said, likely not here first, but it will happen. It's just a matter of when. And the conversation about timing is probably more interesting than the conversation of whether or not this will actually happen.
All right, so we'll end today on a game. This is the final round, and this is worth 10 points. So a chance for one of you to put some points up on the board and win the game. So this is fill in the blank. What we have here is a headline with missing blank. This one is supposed to be fun. Don't worry about the right answer. The job for you all is just to come up with something really funny. And I'll give you 30 seconds to do so. So just have fun with it.
The implications that I'm a funny person, that's dangerous.
Oh, just write your answers down, and then we'll show them to the screen when you're ready. And just thumbs up when you're ready. All right. Who wants to go first?
Not it.
Okay. Anamitra, wireless tiny cameras can be mounted on
Windows.
Windows. Nice. Good
Just
callback.
like the WindowSwap guy.
Good callback. Good callback. All right. Lucas?
I said wild horses.
Wild horses. Wireless tiny cameras can be mounted on wild horses. John?
Claim inspiration from your background, Wiz. We're going with UFOs.
Nice.
Wireless tiny cameras can be mounted on UFOs. Nice. I liked Anamitra's callback, so I will award him 10 points, which makes him the winner for today. But not a very competitive game today, guys.
I'd like to thank the Academy.
The correct answer was actually insects. So, Lucas, you were maybe closest to the right answer. This is researchers from the University of Washington have developed a super lightweight, but also incredibly low-res camera that can be mounted on top of flying beetles. And what's interesting is, I mean, even though they can't control the beetles, they're saying that they can release beetles into novel environments that they wouldn't be able to explore otherwise and still be able to capture interesting shots from there. So cool step forward.
You know what? This probably already exists with spy agencies, and you don't need a live beetle. You can have a like autonomous beetle.
This definitely exists with spy agencies. I would be surprised if they didn't have like mechanical little flying bugs with cameras on them. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining. For everyone watching, this is where you can find all of the guests online again. And one more time, all of the headlines we talked about today came from This Week in Creative Technology, bit.ly/join Future Fridays. Thanks so much, guys. This was really awesome.